Hi, Dr. Klaper, and welcome to the GI Health Summit. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's great to be with you and your viewers all the time, AJ. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, it's an honor. So, Dr. Klaper, you've been a medical doctor for over 40 years. You've taken care of thousands of patients, and it seems that so many people today have ill health in the area of their gastrointestinal tract. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it seems like everybody I know has something, whether it's chronic constipation or IBS. Have you noticed an increase in this? And if so, why do you think that is?
Oh my, AJ, I'm glad we've got some time to talk about it because you just asked a pivotal question, and the answer is fairly complex. I'll do what I can to simplify it. And to do that, we have to take an evolutionary step back, either a million years or at least to the beginning of each of your viewers' lives. And starting with our anatomy, that basically, if you believe in evolution at all, we came up through the simian line, the ape line of creatures. And just like our bonobo and gorilla cousins have, we got fingers on our hands, not claws. We got these big, long intestinal tracts for digesting fiber. And our bonobo and gorilla cousins are up in the trees eating leaves and fruits. And when we follow that basic truth of our anatomy, if the meals that are going down our gut are whole plant foods that really grow out of the ground, we're going to come back to this theme again and again. But seriously, any gorilla mom raising her little one, nurses until weaning time, whether that's months or years. But eventually, the baby then goes off to eating their leaves and fruits and stems, and they spend all day basically grazing on herbage. And the intestinal tract of that little creature is from infancy subjected to this steady stream of well-chewed, high-fiber, complex carbohydrate herbage coming down, week after week, month after month, year after year. That's going to induce particular enzymes in the intestinal lining. It'll induce certain enzymes in the liver, and very importantly, it's going to summon forth a population of microbes in that little gorilla's gut that are basically the microbes that he gets, somewhat from his mother during birth, assuming he didn't have a cesarean section. But the leaves and the fruit, of course, they're all covered with microbes, and they're really what's seeding that infant gorilla's gut. And as the gorilla grows up into its adolescent years and puberty years, the GI system is well used to dealing with this particular plant-based food stream, and like an old shoe that gets comfortable, it knows what's coming down. And I never had a gorilla in the office complaining of constipation or irritable bowel syndrome. They pass these big, soft stools that are classic of creatures eating high fiber diets, and they really don't have the kind of digestive problems that we do. Well, contrast that with modern Homo sapiens infant growing up, from unless they're lucky enough to be breastfed, as all infants should, right away they're exposed to a liquid full of cow's milk protein, or even the soy-based one, etc. It's certainly not mother's milk. That again does particular changes to the gut lining, to the liver enzymes, etc. Certainly summons up a different set of microbes. And then at age 6 months, the baby's still nursing on the breast, with all the love in the mother's heart. That jar of baby lamb, baby chicken, baby turkey is opened. And from that point on, 3 times a day, animal flesh is slathered on that infant's gut. And then it doesn't take very long before Uncle Harry comes along and gives him a few Skittles and candies, and suddenly the processed food parade begins, not only with these refined sugars, etc., but all the artificial colorings and flavorings, preservatives and dough conditioners and all the things in processed food. And that's what this poor little infant's gut is subjected to. Is there any wonder that so many children are in the pediatrician's office with abdominal cramps and failure to thrive and diarrhea and stool fecal retention? And the pediatric gastroenterologists make their livings off these problems, which really, you raise a child on a whole food plant-based diet. I've delivered over 20 vegan infants to vegan moms and dads and watched them raise their child on plant-based food. Their children thrive, and they don't have constipation, they don't have food cravings, they don't go through all this. So this is a big long run-up. Say here now you take an adult who's been eating the standard Western diet, really 20 years, 30 years, and bathing their intestinal lining with meat and dairy and oils and sugars and processed food day after day after day, summoning up all the microbes that particular foods are going to summon up. And then the light goes on. Then they come to one of your webinars and they see Forks Over Knives, or they go to a Dr. McDougall lecture, and then on the plant-based light goes on, wonderful. And they start eating those plant-based foods, great. And most people don't have any problem. Most people, oh boy, they order the bean chili instead of the beef chili. No big deal. It's still great tasting chili and they don't have a problem. But a significant number of folks, and you and I know them well, it's like trying to turn an ocean liner, all the changes that have to happen, and the microbes and the gut lining and the enzymes and the liver, etc. And not everybody can do this on a dime. And some folks, they're going to have a lag between time for their enzymes to change, for the intestinal mucus to change, for them to absorb nutrients better, for their microbes to change. And during this transition time, which may be days, may not happen at all, but it may be days, but it may be weeks or months or even years before people can finally turn that ocean liner and their intestine believes it. They wind up with all the problems that you and I know well. They get the gas and the cramps and the loose stools and the constipation and bloating and all of that. And there are reasons for each of these, and we can talk about strategies for this, but by and large, we have to step back and really honor the realities of making this change, being overly dramatic, the monstrous conditions, though, the really, should I say, inhuman conditions. Homo sapiens are not supposed to have those conditions down in their gut with meat and dairy and oils and sugars, but we created this bizarre milieu down our gut that takes a while to straighten out. And fortunately, the gut's very forgiving, and most people are able to do this. But again, when you realize the place from where we're starting, not so hard to see that it may not be quite so easy to get to that land of digestive nirvana. We could talk about specifics, but we just have to start by recognizing the realities of where we're at with our standard Western diet.
I love that, digestion nirvana. That is something that we can all aspire to. You have a sign behind you that says it's the food, and yet most people that go to most doctors, regardless of the specialty, are not told that what they're eating has anything to do with any of their symptoms, even GI symptoms sometimes.
Oh, it's remarkable. It's embarrassing as a physician. God loves my colleagues, and they do wonderful work. And you've got a GI bleed or a cancer, you want a good gastroenterologist on your team, no question. But there's this appalling blind spot in the heads and minds of everyone with MD or DO after their name, the vast majority. It's starting to change. But it's stunning. And I'm guilty of it too. I practiced medicine for 30 plus years. Well, not that long, the first 10 years of my career. But most doctors practice medicine like what our patients are eating has no effect on these diseases. When the truth is, I'm telling the medical students, that's why your patient is sitting in front of you, obese and diabetic and hypertensive and clogged up and inflamed from what they're eating, what they're running through their bloodstream every 4 hours with every buffalo wing and chicken breast. And the majority of these symptoms, as we started talking about, but as you're implying, is the food. And the second line here, my little plaque here, very importantly, it says, it's been the food all along. And that's the key thing. Oh, I've never had good digestion. Well, what have you been eating all these years? Maybe your gut's been trying to give you a message about that. So, but gastroenterologists, they don't pay much attention to, you would think of all the specialties, the GI folks would be really tuned in on the effect of food smearing along their target organ. You'd think they would have that one down. But you go to the gastroenterologist, bloating, well, let me give you some simethicone for your gas, or let me give you some, you're obviously not digesting your food. Let me give you some digestive enzymes. And, it's a problem-oriented Band-Aid approach. But take a step back, doctor. Maybe that gut is trying to tell you and the owner of the gut an important message that meat and dairy and oils and sugars are not the right fuel. It's like putting diesel fuel in a gasoline-burning engine. Wrong fuel. So again, I'm trying to reach the gastroenterologists and all the specialists because they all have this blind spot. The cardiologists, the internists, and the endocrinologists, God love them all, but they're not seeing it's what your patients are eating, doctors. But now thanks to you and your colleagues, the patients are ahead of the doctors. They got an idea that anyone watching this program already is the lights on that maybe what I'm eating could be improved, and that's almost always the story for sure.
And not just for GI health, but so many of the diseases that you've been treating over 40 years are really diseases of culinary medicine.
Absolutely, the autoimmune diseases and the clogged arteries and the high blood pressure and the diabetes. Pick a Western degenerative disease. When I lecture to the medical students, as part of our Moving Medicine Forward initiative, I say, listen, when you open the door of the waiting room in your office or the emergency department or the surgical outpatient clinic, you're not going to see people with leprosy and smallpox. It's going to be obesity and diabetes and clogged arteries and hypertension from what they are eating. And that's where we got to start. Because the more glorious truth, as you're well aware, is that get the people on a food stream full of rice and beans and greens and fruits and vegetables, a whole food, plant-based food stream, and these diseases go away. The obesity melts away, and the high blood pressure goes down, the arteries open up, the joints stop hurting, the asthmatic lungs stop wheezing so much, the migraine headaches get better. They turn into normal people, and you realize it was the food all along. That's the power of this second line there. It's the food, it's the food, it's the food. So glad we're talking about it. Yes, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you said about how we're meant to eat foods that are high in fiber, that we chew well, yet so many people, whether they're vegan or not, eat a majority of their calories from processed food, which barely requires chewing and has no fiber, like animal products have no fiber.
Absolutely. And, our mothers told us, chew your food. How right she was. It turns out that nature gave us 32 of the best juicers on the planet, 16 in our upper jaw and 16 in our lower jaw. And it's really important to use them. The more I learn about this, the more respect I have for this mechanism. First of all, that's how you grind up the food and break up the cell walls. Remember, all the goodies in plants, all the vitamins and minerals and proteins and essential fat are locked up inside these cell walls of cellulose. You can see them under a microscope. And we don't have enzymes to break down cellulose. We need to physically grind them up, break those cell walls, and that's why it's important to chew your food to a cream, to puree it, to get the nutrients out so you can absorb them. But also, there's air in the food. There's air in between the leaves of the salad. There's air between the grains of rice and a forkful of rice. And if you're eating and talking and shoveling the food in, and you swallow all that air, you blow your belly up with air. And once your stomach's full of air, it's going to go one of two places. It's going to go up or going to go down. You either release it from above with a discrete belch after the meal, or it's going to go down and rumble and grumble and burgle, and you pass with gas and you blame the beans. But a lot of it just swallowed air from eating so fast. And again, coming back to Mother's advice, one advantage of chewing your food to a cream is that it forces the air out of your food. You're going to have a lot less gas and bloating and distension. If you'll put the fork down and make broccoli puree in your mouth before you swallow it, you'll get more nutrition out of it, and you'll stay a lot more accessible to your friends, or you pass a lot less gas, swallow a lot less air.
That's great. So a lot of people are lactose intolerant. I myself was born allergic to milk, yet instead of telling people not to drink milk, they'll say, drink this kind of milk, drink lactate, or take this so that take this so that you can have this, which you shouldn't have. Why is dairy so problematic to human health in general, but especially to people with sensitive guts or GI disorders in particular?
Oh my. I did much of my growing up on my uncle's dairy farm in northern Wisconsin. I've been milking cows since I was 8, and it's funny the way we've accepted this as all American. You want that Farmer Jones out there milking those cows and put the cheese on the table like it's a natural food. Well, the reality is, and during starvation times, and if there's a famine and so somebody's got a cow in the backyard, I don't have any objections to taking some of the milk. That's fair enough. But the truth, and that's probably where it came from. It said that in ancient times, probably some young nursing mother was run over by a chariot, and they got a suckling infant that don't know what to do. Don't know there's no lactating women around. There's a cow over there. Let's feed the baby the cow's milk. And you save the baby's life. Fair enough. Okay. But from that root grows this whole dairy industry. That here we are 2-3 times a day consuming the milk of a cow. Well, cow's milk is for baby calves, and it's full of bovine proteins and bovine sugars that not everybody can digest well. And we cross a species barrier there that we really shouldn't be crossing. And we just chalked it up to, well, irritable stomach or whatever. But now we realize that this panoply of sugars and proteins, etc., in many people causes a low-grade level of inflammation and damage to the gut wall. They lose the ability to absorb nutrients. They have all sorts of terrible symptoms of diarrhea and bloating. And again, this is just their gut waving a big flag saying, stop the cow's milk. You've got no more need for the milk of a cow than you do the milk of a giraffe. Would you pour dog milk on your cereal? Would you pour rat milk? Yeah. How about, here's some nice baboon milk. Yeah, about a nice glass of, what are we talking about? Well, same thing. That we've somehow accepted cow milk as normal. It's not. And all these symptoms are really your body and the truth of species on this planet saying, stick to your own kind. If you're a nursing baby, drink mother's milk. Other than that, when you outgrow it, leave the milk behind. And you'll be a lot healthier if you do.
I love that. That was profound. I've never heard it said that way about crossing the species barrier. And some people can stop drinking milk, but man, tell them to stop cheese and you think you're taking their breath away. Really,
but fortunately, Saint Miyoko has come to our rescue here, and now there's all these vegan cheeses. Now they're made from nuts and they're high in fat, and they're treat food. But if you just want that little taste of cheesy something on your tongue, there's even vegan versions of that these days. But really, stop the cow's milk, because seriously, it's not only has these allergenic proteins and some undigestible sugars for many people, but the cows are pregnant. The milk is full of estrogens and growth hormones and things that you don't want to be pouring on your cereal and taking into your body. If you're a woman with a breast lump or a guy with a big prostate gland, these are seriously adverse substances for your health. So enough with the cow's milk. We now see that.
That's great. What effect do high fat and high sugar foods have on the gut? Because I've seen so many people when they adopted more of a whole food plant-based diet without oil and sugar, even things like reflux go away. They no longer need to take those protein pump inhibitors.
Exactly. And we're seeing now how ill-advised, how unbalancing these refined sugars and refined oils are. Let me say that I'm not anti-carb. Our body runs on carbohydrates. We run on sugars. And I'm not anti-fat. You need some fat. Our skin oils are made of fat. The braiders wrapped in fats. The hormones are made of fats. But the point is, get them out of whole foods. Get your carbohydrates out of whole grains, whole sweet potatoes, quinoa, etc., beans, and get your oils out of nuts and seeds. Small amounts, an ounce a day, but get it out of whole foods, not out of glass bottles. And when we humans, we love that taste of fat and sugar on our tongue. And so we eat them in various forms. And we could spend the rest of our time just talking about the adverse effects of these fats and oils, and these refined sugars. The sugars get absorbed quickly; they stick to proteins in our body, and then which gets oxidized by our body heat and ages our proteins throughout the body, including on the surface of the gut, so we're less able to absorb nutrients. The fats and oils can make membranes unstable. They can interfere with blood clotting, and the fats, they change the gut permeability. The more fat that is eaten, that is consumed in the diet, especially these easily digestible fat, you summon up microbes who love to eat fat. And their byproducts injure the gut wall and allow food proteins and bacterial products to leak into the bloodstream and set off mischief in distant parts of the body. No other animal crushes the fat out of nuts and olives and pours it out in food. It's an unnatural thing to do. It's liquid fat in a bottle. And the damage starts with the gut wall as soon as these fats and sugars are contacted there. And so, again, the whole plant foods, the rice and the beans and the greens, fruits and veggies, don't do those bad things. Stick with the whole foods and you'll be fine. There's other ways to season your fruit without pouring oil all over them, for sure. You know all about that.
Absolutely. Maybe in addition to not crossing the species barrier, we should also not cross the fiber barrier and make sure that we eat everything with the fiber intact.
Well said. Well said. Seriously, let me talk about that. When you eat an olive, when you eat a piece of coconut, the micro droplets of olive oil or coconut oil are firmly attached to the fiber of the coconut, of the olive. And as you chew it up, it takes hours for your digestive enzymes to get into that piece of olive or piece of coconut and start digesting the carbohydrates and liberating the fat globules that the lipase enzymes then have to emulsify. That's what gets in the bloodstream. All these enzymatic processes slow down the absorption, and the amount of fat in your blood rises very gradually. One pass through the liver, pretty much cleared out of there. But when you pour liquid coconut oil, liquid olive oil, look at any kind of oil in your food, nothing slows down the absorption. That oil leaps into your bloodstream and it causes mischief. It can injure paralyze the inner lining of the blood vessels so they can't dilate as well. They, as I mentioned, they interfere with blood clotting. That can be a big problem if you fall and hit your head. It increases insulin resistance, making diabetes worse. Again, these oils are unnatural foods, and we have no need for them. And the fibers you mentioned is the real key differentiator. As long as you're eating a whole coconut, a whole olive there with the fiber intact, that'll keep things pretty safe for you.
Great. You mentioned why dairy is so deleterious in general and to the gut specifically. What about other animal products? Do they have the same effect?
Oh my, they really do in various other ways. Again, we could talk all about animal muscle. There's certainly issues regarding fats, etc. But let me count the ways that meat in the diet causes mischief. First of all, nobody eats raw meat. The steaks are grilled under the broiler. The burgers are fried on the broiler, on the fryer there. The chicken and the fries go into the liquid fat. This high temperature frying generates carcinogens that rub on the gut wall, give you cancer. Mutagens, the mutagenic aldehydes that damage your DNA. There's a substance called TMAO that gets generated from the carnitine and creatine in meats and eggs, etc. When you have meat in a diet, a flood of noxious molecules come into the bloodstream with every meal, and the gut wall suffers as well. It turns out that every piece of meat passes through the slaughterhouse, even organic grass-fed beef. Animals are killed in the slaughterhouse. And as the animals are eviscerated, their intestines are removed, the gut bacteria flows all over all the cutting surfaces. And you can culture gut bacteria over every cutting surface slaughterhouse. So what? Well, that means that every steak and every chop and every chicken breast has a covering of these bacteria. And these bacteria get wrapped up, sent to the supermarket, where under the ultraviolet light in the meat case, the bacteria die. And when they die, their cell walls break up and release this nasty stuff called endotoxin. And endotoxin is nasty. It makes your gut leaky. It makes your blood clot. It releases histamine. It releases free radical. Nasty stuff, endotoxin. Well, and it's heat stable, so cooking the burger doesn't get rid of it. So if you're eating meat 3 times a day, you're eating a shot of endotoxin. Well, endotoxin, as I said, makes your gut leaky, sets off all sorts of mischief. And that comes and starts with the gut wall, what we're talking about today. So when you ask, does meat cause an issue? It certainly does, and then those are just some of the mechanisms. We are not carnivorous apes. We are not homo carnivorous. In ancient times, did we scavenge the occasional zebra carcass to keep them starving to death? Maybe so, but that has nothing to do with who we are today, with the foods that are available and what we've learned about what animal flesh does in this simian Homo sapien body. We are plant-eating folks. If we go back to that diet, these diseases go away and the body hums right along.
Amen. Dr. Klaper, you spent many years working at the True North Health Center. How did some of the modalities you used on your patients there help heal some of their GI disorders?
Oh, it's remarkable. And it's an appropriate question for a conversation now. I was on the staff at True North for 8 years, and there is a nutrition-based clinic north of San Francisco. And people would come in with all these weird and wonderful diseases, and some would do a water fast, but everybody's got to come off the fast. And so we'd feed them a whole food plant-based diet afterwards. And it's just remarkable to see how many patients would come in complaining about irritable bowel syndrome, the constipation, diarrhea, and after a set period of time, days to weeks, depending how long they would be there, they were passing these soft, easy to pass stools, and their irritable bowel syndrome would go away on its own. Folks who came in with a history of colitis or Crohn's disease, once we got them past the initial flare-up, and we would use medications if necessary. The point is, with many of these conditions like Crohn's or colitis, when you taper down the anti-inflammatory medicines, as the gastroenterologist pointed out, they all flare. Then their symptoms come back. That's right, doctor. If you keep letting them eat meat and dairy and oils and sugars, yep, that's what you're going to see. But if while they're quiescent under the spell of the medication, the anti-inflammatory medicine, you're now changing their gut flora. You're changing the food stream now with a whole food plant-based diet, and there are foods that are used in this transition. You find very often, as you finally taper off the prednisone or the salicylates, they don't flare up, and yes, well, what a wonderful, powerful tool that is. So again, all these conditions come from violating the natural law of our digestive system. Once you get that right plant-based fuel going in, these conditions go away. Some folks have rough times. Some folks have several episodes of flaring. Some folks have excessive gas, excessive cramping. But tincture time is a powerful medicine. And as the weeks go by, the gut changes, the person learns to chew the food better. As the weeks go by, they get better. So yes, the GI complaints were some of the most satisfying to work with, because you can be pretty sure that eventually this too shall pass. Sorry
You are
about
coming up with so many pearls of wisdom, violating the natural laws of the digestive system. That is
Yeah.
brilliant. And when people assault their GI tract with these animal products and processed foods, that's what they're doing. And it's so interesting. You said that when they taper the anti-inflammatory medicine, the disease flares. Well, isn't that because they're eating inflammatory foods like animal products and processed foods?
Exactly. They don't change their diet. What do you think is going to happen, doctor? Yeah, symptoms are going to come back, and they do.
Oh my. You produced a wonderful DVD. I actually was in the audience many years ago when you filmed it. It's called Digestion Made Easy. So how can we make digestion easy?
Oh my. Well, you pick the right foods, prepare them well, and chew them up well is the best thing you can do. So pick the right foods, and they are in the produce department of or the supermarket. They are the whole grains, et cetera, that you have a master in AJ who can guide you into selecting the right foods. Prepare them well, simply, but use, if they're cooking food, in general, I won't tread on AJ's culinary wheelhouse here, but I use water to, steaming them. The grains are watery foods, soups and stews. Give your intestinal tract lots of water to work with in this digestion. Minimize the processed foods to the greatest extent possible, and I don't want to be too compulsive. No oils, but 2 drops of sesame oil for flavoring is one thing. I'm talking about, don't be pouring tablespoons of oil on your food there for heart healthy reasons. It's not heart healthy. And finally, chew the food up, even the soups and the greens. To take that second, because that's when you taste the food, really, when you're chewing. So put the fork down and be a chewer of broccoli, be a chewer of almonds, be a chewer of whatever it is, be an enjoyer of a mouthful of squash, be an enjoyer of chewy quinoa. Be fully present while you eat. It's such a gift. There's so many people on earth tonight who don't have anything to eat, don't have enough to eat. We have all this sumptuous food that's usually prepared lovingly by whoever in your house is preparing, even yourself. So be present with every mouthful. It's such a beautiful exercise in conscious living, that act of eating. Make every meal satisfying and one full of gratitude, and that's a very important part of digestion, made easy.
Absolutely. And so many people are eating like this.
Oh my. Good point. Turn the phone off and be here now.
Absolutely. I wonder how many people would improve just by chewing their food.
It would cut down the complaints I get by half at least, no doubt.
You mentioned gut permeability. Is that where the concept of leaky gut comes in? Because I know you had a protocol for that in your patients. What is it, by the way, and how do we resolve it?
Right. The lining of the intestine is, you can spend a whole medical career just studying that. There are people that do. It's one cell thin, but it's it has this amazing function. It's the organ of absorption of our nutrients. Its job is to let the vitamins and the minerals and the proteins and the sugars and the fats from our food get into our bloodstream. Yay. But there's also an important barrier function. There's a lot of things going by in the food stream you do not want in your bloodstream. Undigested food proteins, the breakdown product of cell walls and microbes. You don't want that in your bloodstream. And a healthy gut wall doesn't allow that. And it's amazing. It's always renewing itself. You grow a new gut lining every 36 hours, and it knows just what to do, unless we interfere with it. And we can injure this wonderful mechanism. Again, the gorillas and the bonobos, if what's coming down is rice and beans and greens and fruits and vegetables, there's no reason you should get a leaky gut. You won't. And none of this matters if you're eating a whole food, plant-based diet. But if you've been doing things that, again, transgress that natural law, which we'll talk about, then you can injure the gut wall. What are some of those things? Drinking alcohol, not a smart thing to do. Eating a bunch of oils and fats that make the gut wall more permeable and allow endotoxin from the gut bacteria to get into the deeper layers of the gut wall there. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, the Aleve and the ibuprofen, the naproxen, these things, they injure the gut wall. The phosphoric acid in cola drinks, the stuff that gives cola the bite on your tongue there, not healthy. All the antibiotics that we take, we run to the doctor with a runny nose, want that prescription for antibiotics just in case. Not a good idea. They kill off the good microbes as well as the bad ones. But if you're not plant-based, you're eating chicken, you're eating antibiotics, you're eating pork, you're eating beef, you're eating antibiotics because they feed all those animals antibiotics that still are active in the flesh of the animals. Cow's milk has antibiotics in it. Depending what's in your drinking water, too much chlorine, etc. All these things. Modern life is an assault on our gut wall. And so if you're eating sugar and a bunch of chemicals, I'm uneasy. If you look on some of the candy bars and novelty food, you'll see polysorbate 80. Ooh, what's that? Well, it's a detergent. And it keeps the candy bar nice and soft and chewy, and the breakfast cereal so it doesn't get stale. But meanwhile, what is putting a detergent on your gut lining do as far as healthy permeability there? Might it make your gut wall more permeable? There's even dish detergent. You never get all of that sodium lauryl sulfate off the inside of your drinking glass there, and you're constantly drinking out of it. So again, modern life, oh my, our gut wall never thought it would have to deal with all this. And then finally, there's disease states. If you've got Crohn's disease, you've got colitis, you've got a gut wall that's probably not so spiffy as far as keeping contaminants out. So inflammation in general makes your gut wall leaky. So what do you do? I used to do, there are tests to determine if your gut is too permeable or whatever. I used to order a lot of those tests. I don't anymore. The patient is the lab test. If they've been drinking alcohol and eating a bunch of sugar and meat, I know they probably have an element of leaky gut. If they've got colitis and Crohn's disease written on their chart, I know they probably have a leaky gut. The treatment is the same. I don't need to order a test. In medicine, if it's not going to change your treatment, don't order the test. And so what's the treatment? Well, stop injuring the gut wall, stop the alcohol and the sugars and the processed foods and the antibiotics and the chicken, all that stuff. Stop injuring it. And then start eating those magic fibers of a 5-letter word I get, those magic high fiber foods. Fiber is medicinal for the gut wall. And so the resistant starches and other carbohydrates in the plant fiber, your gut bacteria break that down into this wonderful molecule called glutamine and butyrate. And they help repair the gut wall. They're like a fire extinguisher. They let the gut get back to being a healthy gut wall again. And again, this was all about transgressing the natural law of the gut. And the leakiness is one of the late stages of again the gut wall waving a flag saying I'm not holding it together too well because of how you're treating me. But it's the tires screeching on your car, if you will. You're taking the turn too fast. You're treating your gut wall as a recreational organ. Let it go back to handling the whole plant foods, and the leakiness goes away. It's a self-correcting phenomenon. So another message from your intestines to eat whole plant foods, Homo sapiens, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, you're known for saying your body is never not looking, but I'm thinking maybe there's another saying in there that your gut is talking and you're just not listening.
Very well said. You have a gut feeling, you have a gut hearing as well. Yeah, good point. Nice one.
You mentioned that antibiotics can cause damage, but people don't think about the fact that if they are eating a lot of animal products and dairy, they're taking antibiotics. They're not thinking about that, but they really are.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the greatest societal, biological, medical sins, transgressions, catastrophes that we smart, witty Homo sapiens have done to ourselves is back, and I remember when it happened back in the late 60s, early 70s. The folks in agriculture noted that if they mix antibiotics in with the feed, the cows grow bigger, the pigs grow faster, the chickens grow faster. Oh boy, let's make more money. And so it turned into this massive industry, so much so that the majority of antibiotics produced in America, millions of pounds of it, powerful lincomycin, tetracycline, erythromycin, these are powerful antibiotics. They aren't produced to give to little kids with ear infections. They are fed into animal feed. And as a result, they're spawning antibiotic resistant microbes in the gut of these animals that are getting out into the environment. And we're starting to see infections with bacteria that are resistant to everything. I'll tell you that when you test the bacteria, when you get a sample of pus and you grow it out, the bacteria in the lab, you test it against these various antibiotics. And when you get the report back, you get a little S for sensitive, a little R for resistant, to see which antibiotics the bacteria is sensitive to. There's nothing more chilling. It's a modern day horror Stephen King movie we're living in when that report comes back from the microbiology lab and all you see is is resistant to everything. And at that point, an infection on your hand or a strep throat becomes a death sentence because we just have to sit around and watch the infection spread through your body. And we squandered this magical, wonderful set of drugs. We are squandering it for cheaper pork chops and cheaper. It's just outrageous. So stop using antibiotics for animal agriculture. Save it for people. And now, to complete the story, how foolish we are. The word Homo sapiens, sapien, the word sapien means wise. We're the wise one. Now, talk about an unwise thing. It turns out, out of sight, out of mind. We take the antibiotic or we eat the antibiotic, laced chicken, and it's gone. Well, it's not gone. And it goes through our body and we excrete it out into the urine and it goes down the toilet and out into the environment. And the truth is now the streams and rivers of America are running with lincomycin and erythromycin and amoxicillin and metformin and beta blockers and estrogens. And they're changing the biology of the fish and the mussels and the crayfish and the biology of the entire world. We're making quite a lot of impact upon the natural world with our short-sighted viewing here. So the antibiotics belong in a bottle on the shelf for the time we've got a bacterial infection and no other use as far as I'm concerned.
When people say, but I'm eating humane meat or antibiotic or hormone-free milk, they're just fooling themselves, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. We want anything to make ourselves feel better, especially with the milk. The dairy industry is a slaughter industry. The dairy barn is a short stopping off place on the way to the slaughterhouse so they can get a few years of calves and milk off these poor dairy cows, but they all wind up slaughtered and turned into hamburger. Literally, when you go into the burger place and you order the Big Mac or the Whopper, you're eating ground up old dairy cows. That is what happens to them. And every time we buy the Greek yogurt or the feta cheese or feta cheese made from sheep milk. But every time you you buy a dairy product, ice cream, whatever, you're saying take another calf away from its mother, slaughter another cow. It's a cruelty-ridden industry here. And so when you say, antibiotic-free, you're still supporting these dreadful, dreadful industries that are devastating for the animals and the environment and our own health here. the page on dairy needs to turn into the dim path.
It's like you say, we're crossing that species lines, but that, they didn't always put that amount of hormones in the milk like they're doing now.
Exactly. It's quite a story. But on my uncle's dairy farm, when a cow would become fertile, we'd lock her up in a stanchion, call the man from Badger Breeder who's come out and ram bull semen into her uterus, make her pregnant. And then she'd stop giving milk. She'd dry up. And there's a reason for that. But pregnant mammals don't lactate. They stop lactating. And nature knows what she's doing. And on my uncle's farm in the 50s, well, that's just the way it was. And he made pull out a little notebook, and Bossy number 17 won't give milk until she has her calf in the spring. That's just the way it was. Well, we milked 49 cows on our little farm. Today's modern dairy installations are milking 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 cows twice a day. They can't afford to have their best milkers go offline for 9 months while the cow's carrying a calf. So now they've genetically modified the cows, and now the cow will give milk all the way through their pregnancy. Even though they're pregnant with their next calf, they're still sucking milk off her. Well, the cow's body, when it's pregnant, is seething with estrogens. Well, it winds up in the milk as well. And today's modern milk is full of the estrogens in those pregnant cows' bodies. It's not your grandfather's milk anymore, to say the least. And yeah.
Not to mention parts per million of 3 unmentionables.
Yeah, indeed. And the more dairy products, cow's milk, the estrogens make the prostate unstable. The more dairy products a boy eats, the higher his risk of prostate cancer when he's an adult guy. And the more dairy the girls eat, the more they go into early puberty, the more they get breast cancers. It's for baby calves. It's baby calf growth food. Tell people, go look in the mirror. If you got big ears and a tail and whisker, if you're a baby calf, cool. But if you're not, you do get the plant-based cheeses and milk. A lot more to pour in your cereal than dairy milk, that's for sure these days.
I hope one day people will look upon the dairy industry like we're looking at other things in history that we're looking at like we can't believe that.
Oh, absolutely. We'll look at whaling. We used to do that. Oh my God, what is that we doing? We used to buy and sell black people. What are we talking about? Well, the meat industry, the dairy, that we used to do that to these animals, and we used to eat their flesh. It should cause as great a revulsion as whaling and slavery does today.
Okay. Dr. Klaper, do you think that some of the chemicals that are used to produce our food, like herbicides and pesticides, or even the chemicals in plastics, could affect some people's guts?
Oh, I'm sure. Why especially herbicides and pesticides, why are they there? Well, they're there. They are molecules mostly designed from oil. These are hydrocarbons from petroleum. And there are some really smart organic chemists, and they dissect out the biochemical mechanism. Well, gee, if we design a molecule to inhibit that enzyme and that enzyme, well, then this weed won't grow, or there we can kill that beetle particularly effectively. But these are all molecular assassins that are meant to mess up enzyme systems. Well, in the body, you can't do one thing. You can't do just one thing. The body is so complex and interrelated that when the chemists say, oh, well, this molecule is just going to do that, inhibit that enzyme system. That's what you think, sir. But the reality is that, and we see again and again, the big oops comes along, and they release these medications or herbicides, pesticides out in the environment or out into the general population. And a few years go by, and then suddenly, oops, the reports start trickling into the journals and into the newspapers that higher risk of a cancer cluster was found here, and higher risk of birth defects over there. Well, surely in the gut, how can this not be having effect? How can it not be killing off some particular populations of microbes? How can it not be damaging the gut line directly? And my reading tells me that a particularly problematic molecule is called glyphosate under the trade name Roundup. This is a fiendish molecule that blocks enzyme systems involved in taking up minerals from the soil. Well, it blocks a whole lot of important systems and apparently really increases leaky gut. And it's so ubiquitous, it's water soluble. So now it's in the rainwater, it's in the underground aquifers. We've been spraying it profligately because you can get a few more bucks per pound out of a bushel of whatever. And but we, there's that old homily that many of the Native American Indians, before they would make a decision, they would think, how is this going to affect our children 7 generations from now? And boy, if they could, the folks who, before they released glyphosate, if somebody had given that thought, how is this going to affect us in the drinking water for 7 generations? What's it going to do? Oh my, they say money's the root of all evil, but it certainly can blind us to long-term caring about those who come after us, for sure.
Absolutely. So exercise, what effect does that have on the gut? Because it sounds like many people aren't doing it.
So important. And, that question summons up the image of the bell-shaped curve, that we are animals. We need to move. Again, 1 million years ago on the African savannah, you spent your whole day moving. From the moment you got up, most of your time was spent foraging for food, but also running away from leopards and climbing trees and trying not to get eaten. And so we were physical creatures, we were physical beings. And every time you walk, you step after step, you're bouncing your intestinal tract up and down, all your muscles, etc. Well, this jiggling of your hollow intestinal tube sets off peristaltic waves that keep the intestinal motility going. And so movement of our body is important for movement of our bowels. Every doc who does hospital medicine, we know that when you put someone to bed for a couple of days, well, the first thing that happens, they get constipated because they're not moving. And so absolutely. And then the tradition of taking a walk after dinner, it's a wonderful thing to do. You don't just eat and sit there, get up and move. And so movement is very, very, it's essential to normal gut function. That said, when I said the bell-shaped curve, out on the far extreme now, the marathon runners and the ultra athletes, after hour of being in that remarkable aerobic state, and you got lactic acid in your blood and different oxygen levels and stress hormones, etc., that can be a little hard on the gut wall. And some of these folks who do the 50-mile runs, they're more prone to infections, etc. A bit, and they wind up with some leaky gut problems. We now know about that, and those folks, I won't sidetrack us with how to deal with that. But if you are an ultra marathon person or just a distance runner, do look for the treatment of keeping your gut healthy in that community. There are some particular foods and supplements you might want to consider.
That's great. There's a saying, use it or lose it. But I think for GI health, it's almost like move it or no movement.
Wow, very good. Absolutely.
We're just coming up with great
We are.
great things.
Give a rib shot on that one.
So many people, when they wake up in the morning, Dr. Klaper, the first thing they ingest is coffee, caffeinated coffee. Does that have an effect on the gut?
Oh, I'm sure it does. And I have a fondness for coffee in my memory. It got me through many nights in the emergency room. And, it has a place. If you got to be up all night driving to Seattle for an emergency, then that's what coffee's for. And I don't have a big problem with 1 cup of coffee in the morning. And quite honestly, many people find the coffee oils to be a mild laxative. And a lot of folks, it really gets that first morning bowel movement going. And the caffeine brightens it up a bit. I don't have a problem really with that. I haven't seen any studies showing that causes adverse effect. You don't want to be a 6-cup-a-day Starbucks drinker and always have that latte on your desk and keeping a constant stream of coffee and sugar and soy milk going down your gut all day. You don't want to do that. The coffee oils can be hard on everything from the gut wall to the microbes. But one morning, one cup of coffee in the morning, you get you off to a good start. Enjoy it.
Okay, great. How do you feel about probiotics, prebiotics, and digestive enzymes in general, or specifically for people with impaired guts?
Well, you just enunciated 3 very powerful substance concepts, ideas here, and they're of different levels of import. They all have their roles here. But let me just say for your viewers here, the primary tenet that we're all kind of implying all through this talk, the food you eat determines the microbes that live in your gut. You eat a bunch of sugar, you're going to summon up sugar-eating microbes. You eat a bunch of meat, you're going to summon up carnitine-eating microbes. So the food you eat determines the microbes that live in the gut. And in that way, the food is by far the most important determinant of the population of microbes that live down in your colon, in your entire digestive tract. And if you're eating that whole food, plant-based diet, and your food stream is just a steady river of rice and beans and greens and fruits and vegetables, etc., then you've fostered up a really stable, beneficial population of microbes that have anti-cancer property, anti-inflammatory properties. You're not going to be in the gastroenterologist's office for GI problems. You'll be passing a lot of soft, bulky, easy to pass stools. Now, sometimes if you drink some contaminated water or you're recovering from a course of antibiotics and you've really unbalanced your GI flora, then there's a role, we think, for probiotics. These are preparations you buy at the store that have beneficial microbes in them that you take to repopulate your gut. There's a question about how much they really do. There are studies showing that they can be beneficial and help correct some imbalances. Other folks say, listen, the total amount of microbes in the gut is so huge. This is like a teaspoon into the ocean, that you're not really affecting the total gut flora. They don't really take hold and grow there. And so there's lots of conflicting studies. I think I've seen enough that say that they can be of some good that again, after a course of antibiotics or infection, I think a few weeks of probiotics have a role. But again, it's the food. If you, after your course of antibiotics or intestinal infection, go back to eating a standard Western diet and you're eating the burgers and pizzas and milkshakes, just taking some probiotic pills, again, that you're kidding yourself. High grade on that. It's the food. Healthy up the food stream, and the microbes pretty much take care of themselves. So probiotics are this important. The prebiotics of food are that important. So that's the perspective.
Right. So many people, though, don't go to doctors like you. Their doctors know very little, if anything, about nutrition, and they'll get maybe something like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, or even IBS, and they'll be actually put on a low fiber diet because the kind of foods we eat and that you recommend, they say they can't eat.
Oh, it's embarrassing. Knowing what we now know about fiber, how much that the fiber not only feeds the good microbes, but turns into the butyrate that heals the gut lining. How any gastroenterologist can tell their patients don't eat fiber? He should go back to first-year physiology or really review the realities of what fiber does in the gut wall here. Now, fiber is good. Unchewed fiber, you don't want to put a bunch of unchewed raw celery stalks and raw carrots down there that are badly chewed. No, don't do that. Your gut wall. If you're going to be eating fibrous food, they need to. If your gut wall's been injured from Crohn's or colitis, you want this the fiber to be in a very gentle form. You want well steamed squash. You want well cooked rice and quinoa that are cooked in an abundance of water. Sweet potatoes. These are kind of forms of fiber that are soothing to the gut wall, but still have enough honest to goodness fiber to give the gut wall a purchase on it and put a nice, easy to pass stool push down the gut lumen there. So no, fibers are. I don't know any. Medical condition where a full fiber diet would be contraindicated, with the rare exception, perhaps, that poor soul who's in the middle of a hellacious Crohn's flare up. They're just passing bloody stool after bloody stool. They're in the hospital with an IV going. No, these folks should be given a liquid elemental diet that's just it's a space age kind of diet that has no fiber, just till the fire is put out. That's the only exception. If you're short of that, without hospital IV, fiber is your friend. And cook it well, chew it well, but eat your fiber.
I like that. Fiber is your friend. That sounds like a good T-shirt.
Another T-shirt, absolutely.
Oh, and then on the other side, it's the food. That'll be
it's
my
the
next,
food, absolutely, very good.
So, Dr. Klaper, I know you know these people from working at True North because I met them. They're dutiful plant eaters. They're doing what you say to do, but they still can't turn that ship around. You know, they're having IBS and SIBO and bloating and distension. How can we give these people hope to stick with it?
Yeah, sure. First of all, again, we have to help them enlarge the picture. This will change as the weeks go by and the months go by. Your body is a master at accommodating to realities. You're out in the garden working every day with heavy tools, with hose and rakes. What happens? You basically get calluses on your palm there. Your body compensates. It knows. It adjusts. And it'll happen with your food stream as well. But that doesn't mean that there isn't an art, isn't a craft to helping that transition happen. I'm a pilot. I fly airplanes, and when you take an airplane off, as you get to the end of the runway, you don't pull back on the yoke suddenly. You gradually gain altitude. And the same thing. It's important to get the fiber and the resistant starches in our body from the legume family. Anything in a pod is a legume. Beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils. But that doesn't mean when you adopt a plant-based diet, now you have 2 cups of bean chili for lunch. Well, that was way too quick a transition. Start with it, just 1 spoonful of beans a day. Just slowly, just start drizzling it in. If there's any questionable food, don't eat it for a week or so, and then you have a mouthful, and just start with that. And every day you increase it just a little bit more, It may take you a month or 2 or 3 before you can have a half a cup of lentil stew, but so what? Treat. Once you get over 50, treat your body like an old 57 Chevy. Easy on the gas pedal at the stoplight there. And so with these, if there's a particular food that you're not sure if cabbage or broccoli is good for you, digest well, don't eat it for a week. Let everything settle down. Then cook some up very well. Do it very well steamed, and have 1 mouthful, and just see that nothing bad happens. Then slowly increase it. And each meal will teach you something. And those meals where you feel really good afterwards, the next day say, "Ooh, what did I eat for dinner? Well, I'm feeling good this morning. What did I eat?" And if you're feeling gassy or whatever, look back. What did I eat yesterday? And work with your diet. But you'll find there's many more foods you can tolerate than ones that you can't. And like the I Ching says, perseverance furthers. Just don't give up. This is what you're meant to eat. You will get there. It may take a while, but you'll get there.
And there's so many plant varieties. I mean, there's just like even beans. I heard there was 18,000 different kinds. So
absolutely. And amazing how your tastes change. Certainly when you stop using oil. What do you make for salad dressing? Well, you're an artist at making salad dressing without oil. Once you stop using it, my wife and I were out about a year after we stopped using oil, and we were at a restaurant, and the side dish, sauteed vegetables, but we didn't realize they were sauteed in oil. And the waiter brought the vegetables. We couldn't eat them; they were just dripping with oil. It was disgusting. We looked at each other, how much our tastes had changed, and how much we love just some lemon juice on our greens, or just a little sprinkle of balsamic vinegar. It's all you really need, and your body will adapt to these wonderful, simple flavorings. And AJ is a master of helping you do that.
And people just don't realize how much we really do enjoy our food.
Indeed, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Dr. Klaper, what is the truth about GI health?
Well, it's all determined by the food we decide to put in here. Your gut it's a willing servant, but it just asks for minimum wage. Yeah, minimum wage is a whole food plant-based diet. And again, you're testing your gut, your body, never not looking. So when you're pushing that cart down the supermarket aisle, everything you put in there, well, how my gut going to react to this? How is this going, when it's well prepared, going to make my gut happy there? And you to thine own self be true, Mr. Shakespeare said to thy own gut be true, thy own self be true, Dr. Klaper says. But if you do that, your gut doesn't ask much from you. It gives everything to us that we need to live. So just treat it nicely. Give it that whole food plant-based diet that it was designed to run on. And you'll stay out of the clutches of people like me, and you get to enjoy all of AJ's great food without guilt or worry.
Right. Well said. Chew your fiber. Don't eschew your fiber.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah. We're going to have to write a book of sayings.
Really, pithy sayings from the land of the kitchen.
You're the master of it. Thank you so much, Dr. Klaper, for all you do, and especially for this interview. I really appreciated talking to you.
Oh, it was lovely talking with you, and best wishes to you, and best of health to your listeners as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.